And we are live with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. I am one of your co-hosts, Nicholas Pavona, joined alongside by Andrew Johnson. And Andrew, we are just a few days away from NBA free agency hitting us. Just about a week after the NBA draft happened, a couple of rookies are now into their new homes, and now some of the current veterans in the NBA are looking for a new home as they will hit NBA offseason free agency this year. Is honestly one of the best and exciting times in the NBA, as now we get to find out where some big time name free agents will go in this upcoming offseason.
Yeah, forget the NBA. It's like one of the best times in all of sports.
Yeah,
I mean, NFL off season's okay. MLB off season's kind of dragged out a lot, but NBA off
NFL is
season,
a close second.
man, this is you get all the action right away. So that's really the great part about this free agency. If you remember historically, like the last couple of years when Kevin Durant got broken on the 4th of July, when
Yep.
LeBron went to Miami, you had these big moments leading to this. And it all happens within the first week of free agency. That's what makes it so great.
Yeah, I mean, and you look about it every year in free agency, whether you brought about LeBron James, the quote unquote the decision, the Kevin Durant news a couple years back with the Brooklyn Nets. It seems there's always a big time free agent going on the move or even potentially staying in their home, in their previous stay with their old team. And we could potentially have that in this offseason due to the fact that some of these teams are well over the cap space and they'll try to bring back those players just to try to get close to a championship. But there could be some new contenders trying to build in some, pieces to get those championship opportunities. And we could see that very well soon. But before we can get into that, Andrew, we have to first talk about this year's NBA draft that just happened this past week. We saw Victor Wembanyama going number one to the San Antonio Spurs. Then the draft, you could say maybe took a turn. I mean, a lot of people, especially if you're a Hornets fan, thought they were going to go with Scoot Henderson with the number 2 overall pick. They instead went with Brandon Miller out of Alabama, kind of where we saw that going overall. We got the first 5 picks in the draft overall right. It was pick 6 is when it all went downhill for us, though.
Well,
With
I will say that we got 8 out of 10. I'm sorry, 8 out of the 30 picks going to the correct teams.
right,
And if you take a look where it was actually for example, we had guys going at 8, for example. They actually went at 10. Plus or minus 3 picks for the first 20 picks is pretty good. We had like 100% accuracy for the first 20 picks in that regard. The last 5 to 10, not so hot, but first 20, we were kind of all expecting where they're going to be. The only shocker was Cam Whitmore falling to 20. There's some maturity issues and some medical issues relating to his stock, but Houston got a great one at 20.
yeah, I think Houston overall had a really good, solid draft. I mean, they got Amen Thompson with their first pick at pick number 4. Then they were able to get Cam Whitmore, as you mentioned, at pick number 20, falling out of the top 10. I mentioned that to you during the draft. There were rumors that he could potentially fall out of the top 10. Did not think he would fall all the way to number 20 at the end of the day, but the Rockets get both of those players, 2 guys that easily are top 10 players in this draft if you go about it going into the draft alone. And now they have an interesting offseason coming up because they have the best cap space available for any NBA team in this offseason. There's been rumors about them bringing back James Harden. So Houston's in a very good spot right now where they could make some noise going into the offseason and going into next year's year, trying to get back into the postseason.
Yeah, Houston only one of 5 teams with positive cap space right now. Houston by far has the most at 50 million in cap. A lot of big name free agents. Some of them are past their prime, but they can still give you a good couple of years towards the end over here because it's not really that young free agent. You know that he's 26 years old. He's about to enter his prime. You can sign him on a multi-year deal. A lot of these guys are towards the end of their prime slash just getting out of their prime, but Houston can still make a big splash this free agency.
Now, I want to go back to the NBA draft. I want to ask you a question about this draft. Any pick in particular outside of the top 5, top 10 maybe, was there a pick where in your mind you said, wow, this team got a really big steal? I know you mentioned Cam Whitmore, but was there another pick in your mind that you said to yourself, this team got a really good player and they got him to fall in this draft and it really could help them down the line?
Well, that is a great question. There were so many good picks later in the draft. I will say maybe Jordan Hawkins going to 14 at New Orleans. I know he was kind of slated to go around there. He was a good pick. Jalen Hood-Schifino going to the Lakers at 17, I think was a really good steal. Um, One of the top players coming into this draft, one of the top guards, and he's going to the Lakers. He can learn from LeBron. Kind of
They
a
need a
perfect
point guard
situation
too.
from there. Yeah. Depending on how you view upside, Derek Lively, the second going to Oklahoma City. Well,
Go to
he was
Dallas.
picked by Oklahoma City, going to Dallas.
Right.
He either is going to be Willie Cauley Stein and out of the league in a couple of years, or he's going to be the next big thing at defense, depending on how you view his potential. So at 12, I think that's a home run pick because let's face it, towards the end of the lottery, it's hard to find that all star caliber player. And sometimes you really have to swing to hit a home run. So that to me has the most upside out of the last 10. But overall, I would say probably the biggest steal, I think it's Cam Whitmore still going to Houston. Top five potential to get him at 20.
Yeah. No, I don't disagree with that. I mean, like you said, the lively pick I liked a lot for Dallas in another sense that the fact that they could have got him at pick number 10 and the fact that they were able to trade back 2 slots and still were able to take him. We noticed it all year. Dallas was really struggling in overall defense, especially inside the paint. They get a rim protector now in Derek Lively. And who knows? Maybe he is another type of player like a Ben Wallace where he can get you a lot of blocks and some rebounds. That's what Dallas really needs right now. You look at some other picks. I might, Grady Dick going to Toronto. I think could be a really nice pick for the Raptors as they try to build a new foundation after they're going to be losing a couple players in this offseason. It looks like maybe trading guys like Pascal Siakam and OJ Anunoby. We'll have to see what they do in the next couple of weeks. The pick I liked the most at the end of the day, and I talked about him in last week's show, potentially going to the Lakers. Nick Smith Jr. out of Arkansas. I mentioned it last week. I think he's a really good player. Had some injury issues that realistically cost him a chance to go in the top 10, maybe even the top 5 in this draft. I think it'd be a really special player for this Charlotte Hornet team. And the fact that they were able to get him and Brandon Miller, that's a really good draft for Charlotte. And you could pair them up now with LaMelo Ball. Charlotte could be a nice, fun team in terms of youth in the next couple of years. So if everything goes right for them, things could be looking up for the Hornets.
Yeah, Charlotte has huge upside potential with that Brandon Miller pick. People calling it the Sam Bowie pick already. There are
I,
Hornets fans that are really upset about it. I could see why
I
because you
could
went
see
for
why,
fit
yeah.
and not best pick available. But
Yeah.
man, if he, I really hope Brandon Miller turns out good. He has so much talent on the court. Off the court, there's some question marks, no doubt about that. But he was probably the top player in college from a prospect perspective this year. And if he could even live up to half the hype, he's going to be a great player. Scoot is still I don't want to say relative unknown because he has tremendous talent, but this is kind of like a new era. Like we always had the international players, and at first the international players were scary to draft from. When you think about when Pau Gasol got drafted, or Hakeem when he got drafted, or Dirk Nowitzki, uh, lots of adversity. You really didn't know what you're getting out of the international scene. Scoot's not coming from college. He's not coming from high school or overseas. He's coming from the G League Ignite. And to my knowledge, this is really the top guy the G League has produced so far coming into the draft. So I think he's got a huge question mark to see how it's going to translate from the G League to the NBA. I don't think it's going to be a big learning curve, but uh, when you compare it to the competition in college, is it better? Is it worse? It's probably better, but you learn more from a G League system rather than going to play for the legendary head coach. Previously, like you went to go play for Coach K or John Calipari, Rick Pitino, you learn from them versus learning from a G League coach. Who knows? There's all these factors that go into it, but I think Scoot still has a question mark in that regard. So I don't think I would panic just yet, Charlotte.
Now, the last question I want to talk about the NBA draft before we go into our next part of the show. It's going to be a two-parter for you, Andrew. Overall, who do you think had the best draft and who had the worst draft?
Ooh, the best draft in the world. Best is Houston.
Okay.
Best is Houston. Uh, Worst I'm gonna say is Orlando, who had the most upside.
I think I
They had the
agree with
most
you on
potential,
Orlando a lot.
and
I
I don't
like
know what they're
Anthony
doing.
Black, but I don't know about the pick.
Yeah, I'm not. You know what? I'm not disrespecting the picks. I'm disrespecting the position and the fit.
Right.
It's kind of like when the 76ers had Jaleel Okafor, Nerlens Noel, Joel Embiid, all these big men, all these power forwards and centers. They got clowned for it. Now it feels like the Magic have 7 guards.
And I think the rumor now is that Cole Anthony and Jalen Suggs are now both in the trade block, from what I heard, and that was going into the draft. So this now confirms to me that that's going to happen eventually in the next couple of weeks, if I had to guess. But I don't know. I like I said, I don't mind the players. Black and Howard are solid players. I think it's just the team that they went to. It's really tough considering, like you mentioned, they have the depth already there. It's going to be tough to try to play all these guys in the rotation and give them a certain amount of minutes to see what they have. Because Orlando is, if you look at it, a young team that can be well developed in the next couple of years. They won 34 games this past season. Things are on the upside potentially for this team, but I just don't know where they currently are in terms of after these two draft picks. Now, where they go into the offseason in terms of free agency, and where do they do what do they do now with all these guards on their team? Where do you realistically play them at the end of the day?
I wouldn't even know. They're gonna look like playing pickup ball out there. They're gonna run five guards and a wing at center.
Mm,
It's gonna be kind of crazy, but they have so much talent. They got so much talent out front too. Like I don't know what direction. I think they're just trying to stockpile guards, put them in training camp. Whoever does the best, that's gonna be their guy, and they're gonna trade the rest. I think that's literally their goal. I think they're literally just trying to like kind of do the like farm point guards and find the best one, and then just roll from this at this point going forward because I that's the only thing I can think of.
yeah, no, I'm very curious to see what Jamal Mosley does with this team. I think, like I said, you had a team that won 30 games last season. I don't think a lot of people expected them to win 30 games this past year, and the fact that they were able to win 30 plus is something to be looked about because you're going to see a couple teams in the Eastern Conference start to be a little bit worse for the weary going into the season, and the Magic could easily take advantage of that and maybe make the play in. But I think they're going to have to make a couple trades, maybe either now or during the trade deadline, try to improve that roster and get them even better than what they currently could be. So interesting to see what they will do in the next couple weeks or maybe the next couple months. But speaking about trades, Andrew, we have to go into the big time trades that we saw last week that were going in to that NBA draft. And gotta start off with the Kristaps Porzingis trade going to the Boston Celtics, a big time 3-team deal that almost did not happen at first. Keep in mind the original trade was for Porzingis to go to Boston, and then the Washington Wizards would be involved, as well as the Los Angeles Clippers. And that trade broke through due to the fact that Malcolm Brogdon still had some lingering issues in terms of his health, and it led the Clippers to back out of the deal. So it looked like Porzingis was going to have to opt out of his contract with the Wizards and become a free agent, which would have led him to choose his own team, which would not have been in Boston at that point because they would not have the cap space to get him. But the Celtics were just able to strike a deal at midnight at the day of that trade. They get Porzingis in a deal with the Wizards and the Memphis Grizzlies in the trade fully. It's Porzingis, the 25th pick in the draft from Memphis, and a 2024 first round pick that is top four protected via the Golden State Warriors that the Memphis Grizzlies had. The Memphis Grizzlies received Marcus Smart from the Celtics, and the Wizards in return received Tyus Jones from the Grizzlies, Danilo Gallinari from the Celtics, Mike Muscala from the Celtics, and the 35th pick in the 2023 NBA draft. Overall, Andrew, after all that to digest, who do you think won this trade currently? And looking at it from all three sides, where do you think all three teams now go from here? The Celtics look like, with this move, seem to be now the favorite in the Eastern Conference. And Memphis, for the time being, looks like has gotten their replacement for John Morant until he comes back from his suspension.
So this is what I will say: they had all their point guards were marginally better than one another, whether it was Derek White or Marcus Smart or Malcolm Brogdon. All of them brought something different to the table, but you just can't combine them all into one. What they did do, though, is they got a huge upgrade at the center position. Kristaps is clearly a lot better than Robert Williams and Al Horford, so they couldn't really increase their guard position, their starting point guard position. But
Right.
what they could do is really upgrade their starting center, and that's what they did. So I think that's why they're going to be winners of this trade. I think if Malcolm Brogdon went to the Clippers, that team could have gotten really interesting because they already had two established players on the wing. Their center isn't bad, and they would have had a starting caliber point guard. That could have been really interesting. So I think if that trade happened, I would have said, maybe the Clippers and Celtics are equal in that regard. But Celtics got the best player in the trade, and if he could stay healthy, he plays 65 games this year. They're definitely the clear cut winners.
And keep in mind, like I said, they have the two first round picks they got in this trade as well. They have the 25th pick in the draft, which in turned out to be Marcus Sasser from Houston. So that was also involved in the deal. And they get that first round pick in next year's draft. So they get two first round picks out of the deal. And listen, at the end of the day, Washington really just had to trade him for practically nothing because Porzingis was going to be a free agent no matter what. He was not going back to Washington. The Wizards at least were trying to get something out of him. I like Tyus Jones. I think that's a nice little piece for them. There's another trade that they got involved in, which we'll get into in a little bit. They got some veterans and Gallinari and Muscala and the 35th pick in that draft. But for the Boston, I mean, this is a big deal for them. I mean, they get Porzingis. You mentioned that they had some issues at center. The question for them is, do they start Porzingis at the 4 or at the 5, considering you had mostly Grant Williams playing at the 4. You also had Tatum sometimes playing the 4. You had Al Horford sometimes playing there. Does Porzingis just transition back into the playing at the power 4 and they keep Robert Williams at the 5?
That's so tough because it depends on what you want to do with Al Horford. If you start Al Horford, I think you run Al Horford at power forward. If you run Robert Williams, I think you put him at center. So I think it depends on who's going to be in that starting five, whether it's Robert Williams or Al Horford.
Yeah, and I think now it looks more clear that with the move, you're going to see a lot more of Derek White and Brogdon now playing that point guard position for the Celtics for this season. White was a big, a great add as well as Brogdon for the Celtics. Brogdon just had some unfortunate injuries that cost the Celtics in the playoffs, and they really could have used him. But it's a big deal for the Celtics, like I said. I mean, they're going to be definitely the favorite in the Eastern Conference to try to get out of there and go to the NBA Finals. I would think right now they are probably the favorite, and I don't think anyone really would argue that. It really depends on what the rest of the East does in this upcoming free agency. But it's a really good trade for Boston. I don't mind Memphis getting Marcus Smart. I do question maybe what they gave up in the deal to get him, but I think Marcus Smart is a good player for them in terms of, you lost Dylan, you're going to lose Dylan Brooks, you're letting him go, but you're going to replace that defense with another guy that is a good defender, especially at the guard position. And he's the guy that replaces John Morant for the time being until Morant comes back from that suspension.
I feel bad for him because he bled green. The city of Boston they
Yeah,
embraced him, and he gets traded. He goes to a contender. Don't get me wrong; he's
he
going to a
does.
contender. But I just feel bad how his tenure ended there. I feel for him. He dyed his hair green. The
Mm.
city embraced him. He had that gritty personality. Defensive player of the year, one of the best defensive point guards of our generation, and he doesn't get to go out on his own terms. I do feel bad for him there.
Yeah, so we'll have to see how he does now in Memphis with a team that still could be contending to make the playoffs, maybe even make an NBA final. I mean, it's going to be tough because the Western Conference is a very tough place to get out of, especially with the Nuggets coming off an NBA championship. But they're going to have to contend with another team that made a big time trade in the West, and that was the Golden State Warriors acquiring Chris Paul from the Washington Wizards in exchange for Jordan Poole and draft picks. I gotta know, Johnson, what do you think about this trade with Chris Paul going to Golden State? It looks like he's going to be now coming off the bench and try to get that first NBA championship.
I mean, I think that's where he belongs at this point in his career. He's no longer a starting caliber point guard. He can't stay healthy. I'm not going to diminish his skill or anything because his skill is certainly still very sharp, but it's just about longevity for him. He's going to be, I think, 38, 39 years old. He can't be playing 35, 36 minutes a night, but if you play him 25 minutes a night, it'll do less wear and tear on his body throughout the season, throughout the year. He will be fresh and ready for the playoffs. So if he's still ready to go for the playoffs and then you need to play him 35 minutes a night, I think it's a home run deal.
Yeah, I mean, I think Golden State at the end of the day, they're just trying to get back to the NBA Finals after losing this past season to the Los Angeles Lakers. Um, let's just face facts. Jordan Poole got that contract. Ever since he got paid, it just did not work out this past season for him. really did not show up in the postseason at all. He'll get a fresh start down in Washington. He probably will be the face of the franchise for this upcoming season. Um, so we'll have to see how he does in terms of that because he had a very tumultuous season regarding his stuff with Draymond Green, and then I talked about the postseason and everything. But for the Warriors, I mean, you get Chris Paul, a veteran that is looking to get that championship, could be his last chance to get it. I don't know how much longer he has left in the tank, but if there's anyone to try to get him to that championship, it's definitely Golden State, especially Steph Curry.
Yeah, no, 100%. Steph Curry is that guy of our generation for NBA championship rings. I know people want to say, oh, it's Kevin Durant, that contract in there. Uh, if you ask the other teams who they plan for, they plan for Steph in those finals and those playoff games. They didn't plan for KD. They planned against Steph. That was always the main focus. So Kevin Durant kind of benefited them there, but I still think Steph was the guy there because he won one on his own. Going forward, we didn't really talk about who Washington got for the for Chris Paul, and man, what a fall from grace! Jordan Poole going to the Wizards in that Chris Paul trade.
Yeah,
Uh,
like I
what
said,
a
I think
fall from grace!
he had a really tough season in which the Draymond Green stuff happened before the season even started, and then the postseason just was really bad for him overall. He did not show up whatsoever. But like I said, I think going to Washington, he now gets that new fresh start. He, in a sense, could be the face of that franchise, considering the Wizards are going to be in rebuilding mode for the season. Um, that's realistically right now your top face of the team. They also get a first round pick in 2030 that is currently protected, but by that time, who knows what the Warriors are even going to be? So that could be something for Washington down the line. But we knew it was kind of coming once Chris Paul went there. He wasn't going to stay there that long. He was not going to be a Wizard going into the season. It was just in terms of where he was going to go or if he would be bought out. End of the day, Washington gets that trade, so they did not have to buy him out. So they were able to get some draft picks out of it. They get a new young player in Jordan Poole that replaces a guy like Bradley Beal. So we'll have to see how it does for Washington, but they're going to be in for a long season.
Yeah, no, 100%. I agree with you. And this is a home run off season and a home run trade for Golden State Warriors. Not only are they getting rid of Jordan Poole's contract, they no longer gonna have Draymond Green's contract. So 55, $60 million off the books like that.
Well,
Fantastic.
I want to ask you, with that trade, does that now maybe entice Draymond to go back to Golden State?
I don't know. That's such a tough. I think we'll go. We're gonna go into our
We'll get
prediction
into it a little
show.
bit later.
I don't know where he ends up. I think his time in Golden State's done because I don't think they're gonna pay him.
I don't think so either.
It's new management, and he doesn't have to be the bad guy. It's not like, oh yeah, I signed him. Like, it's my team now. I get to make the rules. So if he wants to take the team in a drastically different direction, he's gonna have this is gonna be his first move.
I think what you've seen so far from Mike Dunleavy Jr. is that the Warriors are going to be looking to try to change some of the things that they've had in the past couple of years. And getting Chris Paul is step one to that. My problem with getting rid of Draymond is you're going to lose him. That would probably mean that you're going to be looking into Kuminga a lot more, getting more playing time this season, which might not be a bad thing overall. Um, I just would have a hard time seeing Draymond going somewhere right now, considering some of these teams and their current cap situations. I'm not sure where he would go. He would have to take an exception at this rate to try to go to a team that wants to win a championship.
Yeah, I don't know what. Do you think Chris Paul finally gets one?
Honestly, I still don't. I don't like them in the West compared to a team like Denver. I still take Denver over them, even with adding Chris
I
Paul.
would too. I would too. That's the thing. I think they have an outside shot.
I
If they
think they
beat him in a
definitely
seven
do.
game series, I wouldn't be shocked. But I still think Denver has an advantage. Barring injuries.
Where do you think this puts them overall, though, in the West? Are they like?
I think it puts them above the Suns. To be honest.
Does that make them the second best team in the West behind Denver, or no?
I think it makes him number two, assuming you have to assume Clay comes back to form, or
Right.
even somewhat back to form. You're going to add Chris Paul, which is a huge addition on your bench. That's going to be your floor general for your second unit. So you're going to pass it off now from Steph Curry to Chris Paul, even though it's not the Chris Paul of 2009. he is still a very good point guard, and he's still an all-star caliber point guard, at
Right.
least in this league. So to have him come off your bench and run the second unit, fantastic. More time for Andrew Wiggins. Kuminga is going to improve. I think losing Draymond, if they lose him, I think that's going to be a net positive. So I'd put him second. Because again, it's in the playoffs. It's about how many players you can play and not getting tired. And the only other team I think of right now is the Suns, who have three guys. They don't even have a team.
Yeah, the Suns have to get a
They have
bench to try to have
auto-generated
it.
players right now.
Yeah, they have to get a bench in order to have any hope, but they don't really have the cap space to really do that. So I
You're
don't
gonna
know
have
what
guys
player.
knees feeling like Jello after 3 or 4 games of the playoffs because they'll be playing 44 minutes a game.
Yeah, and those guys are very, they're not. What's the word I'm looking for? They're very prone to injuries. So I don't know how Phoenix does. I think this does help Golden State at the end of the day become one of those top three teams, but I'd still take Denver right now just because the biggest position that Denver has over Golden State is at center. Nikola Jokic is easily going to beat anyone on that Warriors team in terms of inside the paint. Kevon Looney is not going to stop a guy like Jokic.
Yeah, I mean, no one's stopping Jokic. Let's be real
No,
about this for a
I
second here.
agreed. Agreed. I we'll have to see what Golden State can do in the offseason. There's not much they really can after this move, but it really depends on how the rest of the teams in the Western Conference do. The Clippers could be trading Paul George. We don't know what they're going to do. Does Sacramento take a step back after this season? How is Memphis going to do without John Moran for the first 25 games? Where are the Lakers going to be? We don't know if they're going to be a good team or not, if they're going to add someone in the offseason. There's a lot of ifs and scenarios for the Western Conference next year. The only team that right now is in a constant, they're fine, they're going to be good, is Denver. Golden State could be that second best team just because they have Curry, they have Clay, they have Wiggins, Kuminga, now they have Chris Paul. The issue is going to be injuries because those guys have also dealt with injuries. So if they can stay healthy, Golden State by far could be the second best team behind Denver in the Western Conference for the season.
Yeah, no, I think you said it best, and I don't think I really need to add any more. I think that was a beautiful summary for this, and I think we can move on to our next topic here. And
The
let's
John
talk about
Collins trade.
John Collins here for a second. What do you
Yeah.
think? What do you think is going on with John Collins?
Well, I think there was such a rumor for a while that the Hawks were looking into trading John Collins, and that was due to the fact of his contract. He got a 5-year, $125 million contract in 2021. Does have a player option in 2025, 2026, so still 2 seasons left with that player option as well. But it's a big trade. It creates a $25.3 million exception, which is the largest now in the NBA for Atlanta to potentially use in this offseason. So it gives them a chance now to extend contracts for guys like Murray, Onyeka Okongwu, Sadiq Bey, who they got last year. It's just a cap casualty trade for Atlanta at the end of the day. They get Rudy Gay from the Jazz as well as a future second round pick. Collins now goes to the Jazz. I like the trade for Utah too because you have a team that going into the season, you have Walker Kessler, you have Lauri Markkanen, now you add Collins to the team. They could be a fun team to watch. They looked, like they were maybe could potentially sneak into the postseason last year. Just missed out on it. I think Collins could maybe provide them a spark, but I don't know how to really feel about it. I think for Atlanta, it's not a bad trade whatsoever because you get that contract off the board. Now you have cap space. You could do all these contract extensions, or even maybe try to sign a low tier free agent this offseason and try to improve your bench.
Yeah, no, I think the Jazz are gonna be really sneaky good because I still love John Collins. I know he's had a kind of a sour end in Atlanta here, but still think he's got a lot of potential,
Yeah,
all star upside. Look what they did with Lloyd Marketing. He was a guy who was like a fringe, not fringe rotation player, but I would market him as a high end rotation player, kind of like Aaron Gordon was. And then they unlocked his potential. Now he's an all star. So I think that he can do the same thing with John Collins there.
and I think if you're Utah, that's all you can hope for. You've seen some development with this team. Start and maybe put the pieces together to try to get back into the postseason. Um, Collins, you're hoping at the end of the day can be that guy for this team and get them back into the postseason. But they have some interesting free agent decisions. I mean, Taylor Horton Tucker's a free agent as well as Jordan Clarkson. They have some pieces there that could get them back into the playoffs. It all is going to be about development. That's what this team is. They're just slowly developing and seeing if they can live up to their full potential, or if they have what they had in the second half of this past season, they just collapse. So I'm interested to see how that goes on for them. But I think it's a win-win for both of these teams. I don't think anyone really loses at the end of the day. Um, we'll have to see where they both go from here.
Yeah, I guess we will. Only time will tell. So let's go into the next couple pieces before we hit our free agency practices over here. Chris Middleton declining his player option; he will become a free agent. Kyle Kuzma declining his player option, and Bruce Brown declining his player option, all become free agents. Which I believe leads us to our free agency preview now,
Yes, it does.
where I'll let you take the reins over him here and tell the listeners where we're going to start from.
Well, we tried this in the NFL offseason, and let's be fair, it didn't really go well for us in terms of picking some of the players where they would potentially go in the offseason. What we're going to try to do is we're going to try to predict where some of these big time free agents will go in this NBA offseason, where they could sign, maybe a player getting traded. We have one in particular that we talked about during the NBA Finals that may be giving a hint away for that one. Um, but you talked about Chris Middleton, Kuzma, and Bruce Brown. There's some of the bigger free agents in this upcoming free agency class. And the first one being that is James Harden, who also declined his player option as of just yesterday. He is a free agent. We already knew he was going to do that to begin with. Where do you think James Harden goes? Does he stay in Philadelphia, or is he going back to Houston?
I've said it a million times. He's going back to Houston. He's done in Philly. He's coming back to H Town.
Okay. Hmm. This is tough because he's built their the problem with Philadelphia is if they lose Harden, and we talked about this when they lost Game 7 to Boston. If they lose Harden, they're going to be in a bad spot where I don't know what they do. You really rely on Maxey and Embiid next season, and it really hurts you in the Eastern Conference, especially now with Boston getting Porzingis. I I think I'm tending to agree with you. I think he's going back to Houston. I think what you're seeing out of the Rockets is something really fun. They have a young team. You're going to add a veteran like Harden that can provide some wisdom for those players and get them back into the postseason. Ime Udoka now is the head coach of the team. We saw what he did in Boston. Um, I think it could be a great fit for the Rockets and for Harden to go back there and get them back into the postseason.
All right, so we're lining on that one. Let's talk about the next guy, Kyrie Irving. Uh, he's a free agent this time around. He's currently with the Dallas Mavericks. I'm going off on a limb here and saying he's going to stay in Dallas. I don't see where he's going. I think a lot of teams think he's a liability at this point, and he's not going to have many suitors. I don't think teams are going to clear cap space or sign in
It'd
trades
have to
and
be a
give up
lot.
assets to give him.
Yeah.
So it's I think it's a tough way to get him out of Dallas. So I think Dallas has already kind of committed that they want to keep him. So I'm gonna say he stays with Dallas.
I think the only team you realistically look about trying to get him is the Los Angeles Lakers. The Heat would maybe make a move, but that's another situation, like you mentioned, where you got to do a sign and trade. And I just don't think those teams can really do it at the end of the day, which tends me to also agree with you on this one, too. I think he goes back to Dallas and, keeps the pairing with him and Luka Doncic. And maybe we'll see if Dallas doesn't have a second half, mishap like they did this past season and try to get back into the postseason next year.
Yeah, I feel like it's do or die for Dallas, and I think Kyrie Irving is the answer. So they're gonna go all out for him.
Now I think this is where it gets interesting because I'm not sure how you think about this. Where do you think Chris Middleton goes?
Again, with the cap space, it's so tough. I think he stays in Milwaukee.
Okay,
I don't see him going. Like where else does he go at this point? The Bucks are
that's
still contending.
right.
He's clearly still a contributor. It was Giannis that went down. I know he had some health problems, but he was healthy in the postseason, and that's all that matters. Where would he go?
This is tough because the whole issue right now with the NBA is this everyone with their cap space issues. Now, I'm trying to think of some teams that could use a small forward that would add him. And for some reason, I'm looking at the Indiana Pacers, who do have the second highest cap space in this NBA offseason. I just don't know if they would sign him because I don't know if that's the direction of the team that they currently want, if that makes sense.
Okay, so what do you think? Where do you think he ends up?
I don't know if I want to agree on 3 for 3 because that
I mean, listen, it's the bushing hour, so
it is the mushing hour. That is true. Um, Honestly, I think he's at the point where he doesn't want to. He's already got that championship ring. I don't know what his market is, also, because keep in mind, he's coming off an injury. He didn't really play a lot this season. He had him most of the time was injured. It was playing in limited minutes when he came back. I think that's another big issue that might hurt his market, maybe at the end of the day, which could allow some of these teams to offer him. You know what? I'm gonna say screw it. I'm gonna have him go to the Indiana Pacers.
you know what? I was looking at the Pacers too. I didn't want to say. I feel like that would have been the only other fit.
I think it's either them or he's gonna go back to Milwaukee. I agree with you. I think the cap space is gonna force him maybe to go back there, but I think he's at the point where he's already won that ring. Maybe he wants to try to prove that he could still do it, and he could do it on a team that right now is young and is trying to get themselves back into the postseason. So I think Indiana could make a lot of sense for him.
Yeah, so I guess I mean they still have to clear just a little bit of cap space for him. I know he's
Right.
gonna try to get that contract. So if he wants to get paid, Milwaukee's probably his destination. But if he wants to chill, I guess Indiana. But all right, let's go to the next one with Kyle Kuzma. No longer going to be a Wizard.
He's definitely
Maybe,
not going back.
maybe not. He's probably not going to be
He's
a
not going
Washington
back
Wizard.
there.
Where do you think he ends up?
That's the problem. He's not. This is the one we have to think about because he's definitely not going back.
Oh, 100%. So to me, it's a team that needs a starting caliber power forward, but they also have to have sign and trade potential to get him.
Right. It's
So
just
it's very tough.
who could be a team.
I'm going to say it. Are you thinking Charlotte?
That's not where I was thinking, but I could see that now that you say that. I was thinking Detroit.
You know, I wanted to say Detroit too, but I think they were kind of I don't want to say married to the idea of Isaiah Stewart, but if we could run him at center, I could definitely see Detroit. If you want to put down Detroit, I'll take Charlotte
I think the other issue with Detroit is you look at their team. Also, they have They just got Wiseman. They have Isaiah Stewart. They also have Jalen Durant. Duran. So they already have three caliber starting centers
and
and
power
could
forward
use
and or power forwards.
and or power forwards, and also they have Marvin Bagley too. So I think unless they would move Kuzma to the three, because I think Bogdanovich is probably out of Detroit much rather than sooner rather than later. Now you said Charlotte. Now I'm kind of might be a little bit more tied to that.
I mean, Charlotte would have to be a sign and trade. They would have to get they're way over the cap. They're
Probably have to be
45
Gordon
mil over the cap.
Hayward.
Yeah, no, Gordon Hayward would have to become a Wizard, which would make a lot of sense.
I'm gonna stick with my pick. I'm gonna say the Pistons.
All right, all right, all right. And I'll let you take the next one because I already have an idea where this guy's going.
Next one, Draymond Green. Now, there's been a lot of rumors. The rumors of him maybe going back to Golden State. Maybe he goes to Los Angeles to play with LeBron. I could just meme it and say, screw it, he's going to Washington to play with Jordan Poole again. There's been rumors about Dallas as well. This might be another. I don't think he goes back to Golden State.
So I know I have an idea, and I have no problem saying it right now.
Go ahead.
If the Portland Trailblazers are not going to trade Dame, he is going to be a Trailblazer
Now, why do you say that?
because that is the exact type of player they need. They need some guy with grit who is not afraid to get his hands dirty, who can pass the ball, who could rebound, who could defend, and who's ultimately going to accept scoring 4 points a game. Because that doesn't happen in the modern NBA. Guys don't sign up to score 4 points a game. Draymond does. And we already have two primary scorers with Anthony Simons and Dame Lillard. Adding Draymond there, putting him along Jeremy Grant at the either forward position. I think that's a home run.
I'm gonna say screw it. I think he goes to the Lakers.
All right, he's going to play for his King LeBron.
I think you've heard it so long for LeBron and Draymond teaming up, and I think to your point of how he's going to be perfectly content with scoring that many points. Look at the team he's going to go to: LeBron James, Anthony Davis. He's not going to score a lot of points in that team, so I think he'd be perfectly content with that. If he wasn't going to go to LA, I would lean towards Dallas, but I think LA would be a better fit for him. I think he just likes that California aspect.
All right, so the next guy we have on our list is good old Russell Westbrook. He is not going to. He's not going to be. I don't think he's going back to the Clippers.
I don't know.
It's so tough because they already tried trading for a point guard. So to me, that's
Not
bad.
really saying anything, but he was
That's bad
undoubtedly their
juju.
best player in the
Oh,
postseason.
he was 100%. But I feel like when you trade for some guy, like they're trying to trade for Mal, he's a free agent, right? They trade for Malcolm Brogdon to falls through. Like if you're Westbrook, it's like, damn, that organization tried to trade for another guy. They think he's better than me, so why do I go back there? That's my logic behind it. But I'll let you. I'll let you take this.
I think this is a situation where he has to go to a team, if he, especially for him. He hasn't won a championship. It's got to be a team that's on the cusp of it, right there. He can't. He's not going to make a lot of money doing it. Now, would it be funny to say Philadelphia, considering they're going to lose Harden?
That would just be painfully ironic.
I could see it happening. The teams I have in mind are Philadelphia. I would love to see him in OKC again for some reason. I know they're not near a championship right now, but I think that would be fun for him to go back there. I'm also thinking Miami because they're looking at point guard. I don't think they're going to be able to get a Damian Lillard trade. I think it's tough for them right now. I don't think they have the assets to do it. Do I? This is tough. I'm going to put him in Miami.
Man, you really think Miami?
I think Miami. Russell Westbrook seems like that type of player that will want to. He signed with the Lakers, then went to the Clippers. I think Miami could get him on, a better like a type of deal that can, is cap friendly, and it gives them a chance. This team went to the NBA Finals last season. Westbrook wants to play in the NBA Finals. He's only done it once with OKC.
This is going to be wild.
Yeah,
Chicago Bulls.
Chicago.
Chicago.
I could see it.
I don't think any team is going to end up vying for him, and the Bulls are going to get desperate for a starting caliber point guard now that Lonzo Ball isn't going to be there.
Yeah, Lonzo's career is looking.
I think he's going to be the stopgap.
It's unfortunate what's happening to Alonzo too. I mean, his career looks to be.
I feel so bad for him. He
It
has
really
so much
looks like it's
potential.
coming to an end.
He finally leaves LA. He hits his stride. When he's in New Orleans, he's averaging like 15, 6, and 6 on 40% from downtown. He's playing great defense. He's getting a lot of steals. And then, the injuries happen.
Yeah,
I feel bad for him. I hope he recovers. I know he may not play basketball again, but I think everyone's hoping for him.
yeah. You would hope to see if he can get something going for them. Hopefully Lonzo can return from injuries and play basketball again because you're right. It would be really terrible to not see him play another game in the NBA. But Westbrook would be that gap to replace him in the time being. So that would be an interesting note to see if Chicago does do that. You have another guard on the free agent list, and we talked about him a couple weeks ago, Fred VanVleet, leaving the Toronto Raptors. I would think he's not going back to Toronto either. I think he's going to be on a new team. The question is, Johnson, do you think the same? And if so, what team is that going to be? I have a team in mind.
I mean, I don't know where he goes. Like I said, I'm not a fan of this guy. I think he is a high end role player masquerading as an all star. I just don't know who actually needs a starting caliber point guard.
Oh, I do.
Um, lay it on me.
San Antonio Spurs.
Man, that would be horrendous. I do not want to see him there.
Because the Spurs would pay him the money because they need a point guard. Do you know who the point guard is currently?
I wouldn't be able to tell you.
Devontae Graham.
Wow, when did he get there?
Your guess is as good as mine. I think the Spurs.
Hey, you know what?
I think the Spurs would pay him the money to be the point guard. They're a young
I don't
team.
hate it. I don't hate it. Now you know what? I think under Popovich's tutelage, I think they'll
Yeah.
be good there. So you know what? I'm gonna go. I'm gonna copy your
Keep
pick and say San Antonio.
keep in mind, look what Popovich did with DeRozan in San Antonio. If one Raptor leads to another Raptor going there, it could work out maybe for Van Vliet.
Yeah, maybe. Next guy we have on our list is Bruce Brown, which I'm gonna go into immediately. I think he's actually going to get a sign and trade to the 76ers.
Oh, okay.
He's only made $15 million in his NBA career, and I don't think he's going to take the max amount off of it by Denver, which is 7.8, because I think he can get probably
No,
12 to 15 mil.
he should get paid for what he did for Denver this season. He had a really good
Absolutely.
postseason.
Get paid, and the 76ers kind of need that tweener guard because Harden's not going to be there. Hey, I think he'd be a great fit. You let Tyrese Maxey be the main ball handler, slide in at the two. He'll average 15, 16 points a game. He's not going to be James Harden, but hell, he's a hell of a great stopgap.
Hmm. You know what's funny? I just saw our list, and now there's another player that I kind of liked for San Antonio. Now, kind of regretting my Van Vliet take, but I won't second guess it. This is a tough one for Bruce Brown because I could see him going back to Denver, but I think I agree with you in the sense of I think he should get the money he deserves. Um, hmm, it's tough. This is a really tough one with Bruce Brown. I'm gonna say just put me down for Denver. I don't really have a good
Put
team
you down
that.
for Denver?
Yeah,
Okay.
you can put me down for Denver. I think he should get paid. I just don't realistically have a great enough answer to give you right now in terms of what team could take him. I like Philadelphia doing that. Um, I'm looking more into um, what Philadelphia could do in the offseason now after we both said Harden's not going back. And I thought about it a little bit more. Like maybe I should put Westbrook there to go to Philadelphia instead of Miami. Um, but I think they're gonna find a point guard. I just don't think it's gonna be Brown. I just not sure what the sign and trade would be for Philadelphia if they were to do it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what the sign trade would be,
Would it be
but
like D'Anthony Melton,
yeah,
something
I
like
think
that?
I think it'd be bench players.
Right.
I think it would be bench players and maybe a pick.
Okay.
That's the only way. Uh, I think we spoke about this before, but Nikola Vucevic. I think we both think he's going back to Chicago, right?
Yeah, I don't see him leaving Chicago. I'd be stunned if he left. And the problem is, I don't know what team he would realistically go to if he did leave. Um, I just think it would make no sense for him to leave. I think he's doing good things for the Bulls. They'll definitely pay him. So I don't think there's really any argument from either one of us.
Okay, and next one is Jeremy Grant. I kind of alluded to my pick earlier. I think going to stay in Portland when I said the whole Draymond speech, so I won't go into that again. But I think
Right.
he's going to stay in Portland.
I'm kind of leaning towards agreeing with that as well. I think he's around 29, 30 years of age.
He is.
Probably going to be looking for like a 3-year deal, maybe longer than that. I'm not sure what teams would really give him that type of contract. And I think Portland, at the end of the day, they're just looking to try to keep some of those current players that they currently have for now, try to appease Damian Lillard. So I'll agree with you on that. I'll
Like
say
I said,
Portland.
if they're not trading him, they're building around him one more time. Give
Yeah.
him like one last dance. That's what I look at. Interesting one. D'Angelo Russell. I
Now,
will
go ahead.
I will go out on a limb and say I think he's gonna be a wizard.
Okay.
I think after that poor performance in the playoffs with the Lakers, poor Lakers and poor players tend to go to the Wizards for next season. So
It definitely hurt his stock for free agency. Um, I think he's going to go to Utah.
I thought Utah, but I didn't know how he would actually fit
Now,
there.
when we talked about it, after I talked about the Fred Van Vliet deal, I'm thinking, man, Russell could have been a good fit for San Antonio, and they probably could have got him cheap. I think Utah could be better because you look at their team, their point guard right now is Colin Sexton, and Sexton's not bad in terms of scoring. He's not a good playmaking point guard. And they're potentially going to lose Jordan Clarkson, potentially going to lose Horton Tucker. They're going to probably need someone to play guard, and I think Russell could be that fit for them. So, and we've seen it before, with Brooklyn. He thrives on a team where they have young talent and they can try to shock you and make the playoffs. It worked for the Nets. Maybe it can work for the Jazz.
I mean, hey, that's a pretty good analysis. I agree with it. I think he would fit well in Utah. There's no offense, there's not much to do in Utah. Salt
No.
Lake City really isn't a party town.
Well, he needs
Um,
to stay away from partying after some years in LA.
yeah, so I think this would be good for him to hone his basketball skills there.
Yeah. And then I think our final free agent that we have is going to be Kevin Love, who is coming off the year where she got bought out and released by the Cavs. Then went to Miami Heat, helped them on their trip to the NBA Finals run. Where do you think he goes? Does he go back to Miami, or does he try to go to another team that looks to win a championship?
So I don't think he's actually. I don't know if he's actually looking to win a championship since he already has one. As
I
as
don't
dumb
think
as
so
that sounds.
either. No, I agree with you.
So I think he's going to go for more for fit, and I think he still wants to maybe mentor young players. So this is going to be my hot take. I think Kevin Love right now is an MLE type player, and according to this list, there's really only one team that could offer the MLE, and I think he's going to end up as a Rocket.
Okay. So
Kevin
Rocket
Love on
and
the
Kevin
Rockets.
Love.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like if he goes to the Rockets, he's
Hmm.
going to come off the bench still, but he's going to be playing with James Harden potentially. And I think they have enough stock to get another good starting caliber player. Maybe not an All NBA player, All Star like James Harden, but another good player.
Well,
And
he's
then you
certainly
have a young nucleus. You have a young nucleus built around them.
right.
So I feel like that would be a really good fit for him, and I feel like the city would embrace him.
Yeah, and he certainly is not going to command for a lot of money because he's near the last step of his career. Um, I agree with you in the sense that he would like to mentor someone because he kind of saw it in Miami. He was mentoring some of those young guys, especially during that playoff run. So I don't mind that. I'm trying to think of a team that would work out for him. Um, it would be fun to say Minnesota and bring him back there too, but I don't think they can offer. I don't think they can bring him in. Um,
I mean, it's not. I don't see you think. I think a Minnesota reunion would be cool, but I wouldn't.
I wouldn't. I
I,
don't think he would do it.
I don't think it's gonna happen. I don't think he's gonna do it. Maybe in a year or two.
I'm thinking. I'm kind of. Kevin Love seems like that guy that wants to play maybe in a big time city. Am I wrong to think that?
He does. That's why I said Houston.
So it kind of makes me want to say a team like, um, I would say maybe the Clippers or the Nets. Maybe the Nets are going to be interesting because I
Oh,
think
that'd be so terrible. I don't want to see Kevin Love in New York,
I,
please.
I think the. Well, do you want me to say the Knicks?
No, I don't
It
want
would
to. I
make no
definitely don't
sense.
want to
It
see
would
that.
make no sense for the Knicks to do that. Um, now you know what? Kevin Love looks like a Chicago Bull. I'm gonna put Chicago. He
Man,
just
going to Chicago. Yeah,
he he
that
just
gritty guy towards the end of his career, like
yeah,
that
he just seems like a
veteran.
bull. And they have Patrick Williams. He can mentor Patrick Williams. You know what? I'll go stick with Chicago. I'll say that.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. So that kind of sums us up there. And Kevin Love becoming a Bull or a Rocket would be something to see here.
And then where I think we're both pretty much kind of agreeing that I think right now Damian Lillard
Oh, he's gonna stay.
is
He's gonna stay in
probably going to
Portland.
stay right now with Portland. If he was to get traded, it's either going to be at the deadline, which I don't think is going to happen at all. It would probably be next off season because I feel like it's going to be like a Wizard situation where they're going to finally realize, you know what? you're right. It's not working. We gotta trade you. I think they'll go. I think they'll go one more year with Dame and see how it goes with Henderson and Simmons and potentially some of these guys that we mentioned in this free agency. If they got guys like maybe Jeremy Grant to go there, you mentioned Draymond Green. They gotta try to appease Damian Lillard at some point. They missed the playoffs the past couple of years. They gotta get back there to try maybe keep him there, but they're running out of time, and I think eventually he's going to want to X out, but he just hasn't X'd out yet. He's willing to stay committed, but he's already said he doesn't want to be around a team that is a bunch of young players. He wants to be around some veterans that want to win a championship.
Yeah, I mean that's the whole thing. I think if Portland really commits to it, he's going to stay there.
And I think if they do that in the offseason, I think they would definitely keep him, but I don't know where they go. I think right now
Only time will tell.
I think Miami just doesn't have the assets right now to get him. That's been the problem.
Yeah, that's gonna be the big problem, and that's why I mean we really need an expansion team. That's a whole nother conversation to get these players paid more because this whole cap situation is now pretty dire.
Yeah, Vegas and Seattle, they very could be very soon because like we said, we looked going into this podcast about what the cap space was. A lot of teams are in the negative, and I think adding two teams potentially could help the NBA in the sense of getting these teams some talent in order to get to the playoffs and potentially win an NBA championship at the end of the day. So, like you said, only time will tell, and we'll see what happens. For Friday free agency will start in the NBA officially. So we'll have to see if there are any big time moves at the end of the day, and if there will be some major shakeups in the NBA going into this 2023-2024 NBA season. So make sure to tune in next week to see if there are any breaking news in the NBA offseason, as we'll be sure to break them down and see how they overall impact this year in the NBA. That is going to do it for this week's edition of the All Gas No Break Sports Show. A great NBA draft once again. Some nice young developing rookies potentially could be happening in the NBA. We'll have to see how they do. And we'll have to see how free agency goes at the end of the day and how these teams can improve their team in order to win an NBA championship. This has been Nicholas Bavona alongside Andrew Johnson with the All Gas No Break Sports Show. Have a great rest of your weekend.